Well, hello and welcome into New York's Asset Protection Roundtable, a three pillars of protection program. I am Ben George, and he is Ted Alatsis. He is an attorney and counselor at law at the Alatsis Law Firm there in Brooklyn, New York, and got a good show for you today. Your estate plan is done, which is great. Now, should you tell anyone? We're going to explore that question today with Ted, as always. And if you have questions, you can always follow up with us online at alatzislawfirm.com, or you can always call 718-233-2903. Ted, welcome in. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Ben. Hope all is well with you. Spring has finally sprung, and it's a beautiful day out today.
It is a great time of the year. I'm sure. I know the Northeast is always, when spring hits and summer, it's always an awesome time of the year, and everybody's out and about, I'm sure, and enjoying this new weather.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's going to be in the 80s for the rest of the week, which for this time of year is pretty unheard of.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Well, hopefully you get to enjoy it, and hopefully you enjoy spring. And we appreciate you joining us for the podcast today. And again, our main topic is your estate plan's done, and should you tell anyone now? So let's say you completed your estate plan, which is great. That is an important step and towards making sure that you and your loved ones are taken care of. But what happens next? You don't have to tell anyone. You're not legally required to tell anyone, but should you let anyone know? I want to explore that question with you, Ted, during this episode, and kind of reveal maybe the people that you should involve in the conversation about your estate plan. Because, before we even get into this, Ted, you don't have to tell anybody, but do you get this question a lot? Like, hey, we finished, Ted. Now, what do I do?
Oh, I get it all the time, and it's in all kinds of contexts. So yes, absolutely, we get this question all the time.
All right. So here are some people that maybe should know about what your plans are. First one are those that are in charge of taking care of you if you get sick, right?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly, having documents or plans that provide for people to assist you when you're in your time of need, especially with regards to health, are great. But if the people who are going to be charged with that responsibility don't know, then it's kind of pointless, right? So you definitely want those people to know that they've been granted this power and this ability and this authority for you, and that they're part of your estate plan. So you definitely want them to know for sure.
And not only that, you want them to know that, hey, you've kind of given them this responsibility, but it's probably best to talk through kind of what your wishes are too, and how you want to be cared for if you find yourself in this position.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, because the documents can contain as much information as you want them to contain, but they're not going to cover every scenario. So it's important for the person, especially a healthcare agent, to understand first what your personal desires would be in certain circumstances. Whether, for example, you are inclined to favor life sustaining measures in the scenario where you're unable to be kept alive in any other means or something of that nature. So, you're the person who's going to be that healthcare uh, decider, so to speak, needs to know, what your wishes are in order to honor them.
Right. So that's the first one, those that are going to take care of you if you get sick. Now, what about the ones that want to take care of your children? Let's talk about this one here, Ted, because this is obviously very important. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a conversation you should probably also have ahead of time too, to make sure that they are comfortable with that. Or do you find people that, hey, I know who I want, I'm going to name them that, and they'll have the conversation later?
So most people, when they come in, appointing, with the idea that they're going to appoint someone to take care of the kids if they're gone, um, they tend to have had that conversation already with the person or persons that they're selecting to do that. Now there are circumstances where they haven't had that conversation, but that's typically in a scenario where it's a direct family member, a brother, a sister, or maybe a parent, who would take over in the scenario where the parents of the child or minor child have passed in a circumstance, sort of almost a natural flow, so to speak. But when you're in a scenario and you're selecting friends, godparents, someone who isn't necessarily involved in the child or children's day to day, but that's the person you're entrusting with the responsibility of taking care of those children. It's important to have that conversation in advance. And frankly, you want to have that conversation because you want to understand and realize whether that person or persons are suitable for the responsibility, right? Because selecting someone who's never had kids before, for example, might not necessarily be the right choice. So you want to make sure that the person or persons you're selecting have the same parenting philosophy, that sort of thing, to sort of be consistent as well. So it's important to have that conversation in advance.
And then afterwards, when you've kind of set your estate plan in place, I guess you want them to know where to look for your paperwork, how to get in touch with the attorney, these types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Having plans and not having anyone know where they are also pointless. So yeah, it's important for at least some person to know where everything is. If you retain the originals, and certainly where the originals are. If you've left your originals with the attorney for safekeeping, then who the attorney is. So these are the types of information that certainly would be important, and someone should know other than yourself where they are.
And I know that you've probably had this conversation with the people that you've chosen for this role, but how often do people actually write down and kind of maybe make a list of instructions or wishes when it comes to their children? Is that something else they kind of add as part of kind of passing along this information?
So it varies from person to person. Some people, they select a guardian for their children who um, whose mindset is in sync with their own, and so maybe they don't need to be as specific. But some individuals or couples select people who maybe have a different philosophy or haven't had as much experience taking care of children, and so or they have a very particular set of wishes. So in those scenarios, they're more specific, certainly with regards to instructions on how to kind of take care of their children, what schools they'd like them to go to, that sort of thing.
All right, so your estate plan's done. You've already told people that are in charge of you when you're sick, those that are going to be raising your children. The next group of people or person that you might want to tell is those that are in charge of settling your estate after you pass. So, what information are you passing along to this person or these people, Ted?
So that's more specific with regards to where documents are, where family members are located, so that if the time comes and someone needs to be put on notice, they know where to find them. Um, excuse me. Who the attorney was who drafted everything. Sometimes even where certain assets are located, that sort of thing, or where they can be found. So you may not necessarily want to tell that person, all my assets are located in this particular um, you know uh, location, branch, whatever. These are the express details of my assets. But you may want to tell them, hey, I'm keeping all this stuff kind of private, but upon my demise, you can find, I have a book that has everything listed, where everything is, where all my assets are, maybe a list of passwords to online banking accounts, that sort of thing, so that there's a way for that person to manage everything once you're gone.
All right, and the fourth group of people there you should tell are your loved ones who are going to be affected by the plan. They need to know, obviously, that your plan's in place, where it is, who to call. But how many details again are you getting into here, Ted, with your family and friends?
So this is a really personal decision. So it varies from case to case, and really, at the end of the day, the question becomes, how much do you really want your beneficiaries to know? Sometimes people, when they do estate plans, they realize that there's going to be some discord that occurs once the beneficiaries find out how things are being divided, and that typically will happen when a split is uneven, or quote unquote uneven, and so you know giving details like that away while you're alive may cause some additional stress that you may not necessarily want to incur. So you may want to limit the amount of information you provide to your beneficiaries to the extent that where and when they can find the estate plan, where what lawyer prepared it, that sort of thing, who the executor might be if it's not one of them, or the trustee, so that's sort of general information. But the specifics are certainly um up to you as to how you want to do that, and why, what benefit you derive by telling them. So for the most part, like I said, the discord question is the most the greatest impediment to telling your beneficiaries what the ultimate distribution of your estate is, and so you kind of have to put that into account when you do that.
Do you often have to consult people through that process, or do most people kind of know yes or no? I want to tell my family, or I don't.
Well, So we do have conversations with clients about this all the time, and a lot of times there's a method to this too, or it's so sometimes parents or they may want to um, use the threat of taking away of disposition as a means of maybe moderating behavior or building a relationship or something of that nature. And so there's or to protect against abuse, right? So sometimes people will use that information as a means of you know um just assuaging relationships. And so it changes from case to case. Generally speaking, when everybody's on the same page, it certainly is easier to manage an estate when it's over, um and to avoid disharmony once the person passes. And so there you have to weigh that with the overall objective of your plan.
Very good. So these are the kind of the four people that maybe should know about your estate plan once you finished it up. And again, I think the bottom line though, Ted, is just, the reason why we want to have this conversation is because, once it becomes time for these people to step in and kind of take over, you want them to know what they need to do, right? They can't ask you anymore, right? So you don't want to leave it to chance. It kind of takes out a little bit of that guesswork.
That's correct. I mean, we haven't conducted a seance in a while, so haven't had too many of my clients reach out to me after they're gone. But certainly, the more you're able to clarify while you're alive, the better. But take into consideration the reasons why you're letting people know, why and where, when you're alive.
I didn't realize you offered that seance service. But in all seriousness, I guess the other thing too, to kind of wrap up this conversation is, as you update your estate plan, which you should be doing right throughout your life, new paperwork, that's also, those conversations probably need to be updated in some capacity, maybe not to the people that are already on the list and have still remain on the list, but where to find the plan, any changes you make, any wishes that you've adjusted.
That's right. That's right. And that also kind of goes back to the original question of whether you want to tell your beneficiaries everything. Because if you change your mind on a beneficiary over time, that might not necessarily be a good idea. So you certainly want to, like I said, it's really about making sure that the right information is provided, not all the information necessarily.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that aspect of it, but that's so true. All right. So if you have questions again for Ted, want to follow up on anything we talked about today, please do so. You can visit him online at alatsaslawfirm.com. You'll find all of our podcasts there, plus a lot of video content as well. Just a lot of tools and resources to help you out. Any questions that you might have about your estate plan, or you can call as well. That option is available, 718-233-2903. So congratulations if you have finished your estate plan. If you have not, now is the time to go ahead and put that in order to help protect you and your loved ones as well. Ted, we always appreciate your time, and thanks for taking us through this.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
So for Ted Alatzis over the Alatzis Law Firm, I am Ben George. Thanks for listening to New York's Asset Protection Roundtable, a 3 Pillars of Protection program. We'll talk to you again next time.